Great. Well, thanks for joining us on another beautiful, sunny Friday morning developer hangout, Intuit Developer. Today we're going to be covering pitching, especially at the QuickBooks Connect hackathon. And we'll be sharing some of our best practices, going into what the coaches and other people who will be there would want to see. And yeah, just sort of having a discussion around how to present like a pro. So as you guys know, QuickBooks Connect is coming up beginning of November. I know everyone on this call is going. That'll be super fun. Great opportunity to see each other besides a little 2-inch square on Hangouts every day. And of course the hackathon is right before that, November 1st through 2nd. Which should also be a great time. I don't know if you guys have read about the judges at all, but they, Ben, Katie, and Satya, they're going to be the final judges. There's going to be 2 rounds of judges, one of which will be sort of individual for each category. So the 3 main categories, whether you're building a new app, whether you're building a extension to an existing app, or whether you are creating an app for nonprofits. Those will be judged sort of in each category beforehand, and the top few from each one will be presenting on the main developer stage to these 3 judges. So these are the judges you really have to watch for. And yeah, just jump right into some of the tips I've thought of for presentations. The most important one, I think, is practice. I think that this is an area you see at hackathons all the time where people don't have a super solid idea of what's going on, how the slides are going to flow. They don't even see if they do make slides. They don't really check to see if they're finished before they get up on stage. So just running through it 1 or 2 times can be a total lifesaver for your presentation. Because everyone knows that after a hackathon, you're pretty tired. You've had a pretty emotional and exhausting couple days, and just having a time right before, or even throughout the weekend, where you can give an opportunity to get feedback and see how your presentation sort of flows and what you address. That opportunity to get feedback is really important. So I definitely recommend getting some practice in. Another thing I want to share is making your presentation visual. I don't know, Matt, have you ever seen a demo that looks sort of like this, or made some sort of really cool app that maybe this is your MVP for it. And so this seems pretty cool. This is some sort of social network maybe, and probably a lot of work went into this, but you can't, as someone judging, you're going to have to really convince them that you did this work, and you explain what you did all on the back end and everything, because my visceral reaction to this is that who knows, like, you just wrote some HTML tags and stuck them up on a page, and so you want to make sure that the things that you present can be easily understood. You don't want to make it hard for the judges to see what you've done, and you don't want to make it unpalatable when they do see it. So I just wanted to put up some recommendations of front-end frameworks that I've used. I don't know if you guys have used some other ones, but Bootstrap is always a nice one, because you can sort of drag and drop some CSS in there, and then have just some a good baseline view of, or baseline level of quality in your CSS and visual presentations. Um, I've also used the Foundation framework from Zurb. They have a really solid grid system for mobile devices, and you can nest it really easily. So if you want to make little nesting grids that change and are sort of responsive, that's a really good opportunity there. And then Google has put so much work into their material framework. There's a couple different projects that use Google's material design in them. One is the material package for Angular, and then there's also another group that I didn't put up here, Materialize CSS JavaScript framework that can sort of make your application look just like something that you'd find on a native Google application as well. Man, has there been anyone that you've used or that you like to highlight as well? Maybe not. Totally good. Let's see what another thing to do, sort of as a general guideline, is to start thinking about the pitch early. In the first part of the hackathon, of course, you want to find your idea and get working on it, but you want to make sure that you think of ideas that are in scope, and you want to find things that you'll be able to finish on time, and that sort of involves being able to find things that you want to present in a meaningful way. You want to be able to, if you're working on a project that has some sort of large back-end parsing project in it, then you might have some challenges there if you prioritize that over some sort of new visual part that you can demo, because no one's going to be able to see the work you've done on your databases, right? So you want to think about what you might want to present in the pitch, what you're going to be able to accomplish, and really work for getting your pitch in a good spot, because that's in the end what people are going to see, and that of course includes your demo. You don't want to neglect your application just to work on slides. That's definitely not what you want to do. But you do want to make sure that you think about what people are going to be able to see and interact with when prioritizing work during hackathon. And some other tips that people, I think, especially the sleep one, you could see people on stage after a hackathon that are just falling asleep, and that just makes the whole experience a little more stressful for everyone involved. The best thing you can do, I think, is to sort of help your pitch by making sure you get a few hours of sleep beforehand, or if you have someone who's maybe blocked by other work, have them work on the presentation so that they can have a fresh mind for this. And then also, again, know who your presenter is. It's not a good idea right before the hackathon to have people arguing about who's going to be up on stage, or have people shirking away from giving the presentation if they wanted to catch some sleep instead. Another great tip is to relax. You might feel like, especially with the QuickBooks Connect hackathon, there's some pretty serious prizes on the line. Some pretty cool judges that you'll be in stage in front of. But you don't want to get too stressed out about what you're talking about, and you don't want to worry too much about any ums or uhs you say. You want to just have a relaxed conversation and make sure that you show your application in the best light that you've worked on. It's not. It may seem like the end of the world, but making some mistakes is a totally normal part of any hackathon pitch. So don't concern yourself too much about it.
Tristan, do you have any tips on kind of calming yourself when you're starting to go down the rabbit hole of anxiety? So how'd it go? So for those of you, I know this, but those of you on the line, Tristan very recently had to compete and then also demo at the White House. When was that? A couple months ago, right? So did you get nervous? I mean, that is the White House. Were there were there like special agents there with like were there men in black? Were you like freaked out about that?
No, yeah. So I worked on a project at a hackathon here in San Francisco. It was for a group called Bayes Hacked, or Bayes Impact is the group, and the event was called Bayes Hack, and they essentially take social sort of public government data or social impact data, and they did a sort of a data science hackathon. And so my team worked on data from the Mine Labor Safety Administration. Ore mines and other underground facilities. The inspection data for that about their accidents and fines and violations, and we sort of helped make a tool to help mine inspectors use some of their excess bandwidth to find high impact mines to evaluate. And my team ended up winning the hackathon, and we got a trip to DC out of it, where we presented. It was only in the West Wing, so it wasn't right in front of Obama or anything, but still really good and a fun experience. Yeah, I think a great way to calm yourself down beforehand is make sure that you practice. If this is the first time that you've said anything for your slide, then that's going to be a really big challenge. And I think that another good point is to make sure a crutch that people use in presenting is to memorize everything they want to say, and so that they write out a whole script, and then they try to spend the next 45 minutes memorizing every line, and then when you mess up on a line or you can't forget what the next sentence is, or you have like a surprise slide that's in there, you really sort of lose composure and you can't do anything else. So that really will really trip you up if you try to memorize everything up. So use your slides as a crutch even. Try to get inspiration from your slides about what you should be talking about, and don't try to memorize a full script or anything. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jeff.
Did you do the demoing or did you do the speaking? Because usually, like I've seen a lot of hack teams, and when I was running hackathons, normally the guy who like coded it, I want to demo it, but he was probably more in the trenches and could talk about their hack a little bit better than other folks. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we had to remind them, like, hey, you actually know your hack a lot better, and I know that this is your baby, but why don't you let somebody hold your baby for a while and demo it, and you talk about it because you present much better. So how did you decide who was going to demo and who was going to speak and do the song and dance behind it?
Right. So I actually the focus of the hackathon that I was working on was around the data science aspect. So not as much about building building a cool website or anything for it, but doing some really intense machine learning or trying to figure out good correlations in the data. So I was doing the presentation because really the meat of the hack was the data science guys who are on my team. So they were the ones giving out the sort of the specifics about how they did. They found any of the correlations or things like that. But yeah, that's a good point, especially with hackathons that have a lot of Q&A time. You want to make sure that You have, because sometimes you can only put so many people up on the stage, and you want to make sure that you have everyone up there who might be able to answer a question that is going to be really important. So definitely have your technical teammates up on stage to be able to answer anything that could come up from a judge's question. Another good point. Um, yeah, and a lot of people get tripped up on the content they should have in their presentation, and honestly, each hackathon sort of favors different amounts. So this is some things I think that our judges will be looking for, especially when you think about the market that we're in. It's always a great idea to sort of describe the problem that you hacked against, the problem that you think that your users are going to be facing, and not just describe like, oh, people have a hard time creating expense reports. Uh, think about the problem in terms of the impact it has. So, how many people are affected by it? What kind of damage does it cause? How many hours do they lose? What kind of monetary opportunity or value is in there? Uh, this is this is a pitch competition, but it could also be the start of a new business for some new integration that gets created. And so you want to think about tackling problems that have a high monetary value, and that could be the start of your new company. So that's pretty exciting. And then make sure you show what you've done. The demo, I think, is usually the make or break point for hackathon entries. I've seen some teams that they work really hard on having really good slides, and they just present something, but in reality, they don't have any working code. Nothing that they have is really operational. But they spend all their time working on their presentation, and that might also be contributed to based on their team composition. But you want to make sure that you show people what you worked on, because if you don't really present it at the end, then no one really knows all the hard work you put into it.
So I'm gonna ask a question. So I know that before I taught myself how to code, I would still go to hackathons just because I'm a nerd, and I would go there with having kind of the presentation and the marketing background,
Yeah.
and also the branding and messaging background. So I know that I've been getting emails as the hack registration opens saying, hey, I'm an accountant or I'm a marketing person or whatever. I don't know how to code. Can I still join a team? So I was wondering if anybody online, or Tristan, if you have any experience of having somebody who doesn't have a technical background on your team just to kind of prepare that portion of it, and then everybody who does know how to code can kind of get down and dirty with the code, and then and not have to, not necessarily worry about it, but kind of concentrate on that until it's built, and then they can kind of concentrate a little bit better on the demo and the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to go to a lot of the startup weekend events, which you do get a large mix of people, and many of them are non-technical, and there's really a lot of opportunity for not technical people to get involved. I mean, I would say if you have a team of people who didn't code, it might be challenging to win, but you could definitely get a lot done. Because there's actually a lot of incentive in this hackathon. I'll just bring up the judging criteria here, to get some feedback about from real customers about the pain point that you're solving for. So anybody can go and try to do some user research, talk to some of the accountants that are at the show, or the small businesses that are at the show. They're going to be around and the whole convention center. So that's I think is a great opportunity for anybody, from a 5-year-old to an astronaut there. They could all have the opportunity to contribute in a really meaningful way. And honestly, if you think about judging criteria, the impact is a pretty big part of it. So being able to have people who aren't head down in the code the whole time, that could really make a difference for a team. And also, uh, that like doing user research, talking to people, also having people dedicated to working on the slides or presenting. Uh, those are just great opportunities for people to. I think we have a little bit of echo going on, which is fine. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities for people to to have a meaningful impact on a team, even if they're not technical. Um, so that shouldn't be a concern. But you do want to make sure you sort of sign on to a team that you're interested in and have some technical people on it, so that you can most effectively provide some support to them. I don't know, Matt, if you have any experience of teams you've worked on that maybe you had some freelance non-technical people added in.
Last year's hackathon was my one and only time, so
Oh.
I didn't have any experience going into that, and it was just me and one other person. So
And did you both just coded the whole time, or?
pretty much, I mean, at the end, we shifted over to. I think there was time after the coding had to finish between then and the pitches that switched the focus to that.
Well, maybe you'll be a good candidate to have a free agent come join your team and do some important work for you.
Quite possibly.
Quite possibly. Cool. I just wanted to go over the rest of the judging criteria. We talked about impact a little bit. Quality and design. That's going to be obviously a very important aspect of the hackathon. How well does your product sort of work, or seem like it'll work in the future, maybe with a little bit more time, and what kind of level of integration with QuickBooks Online does it have? We obviously want to reward people who are really leveraging the platform as much as possible. And then innovation and simplicity are also pretty important aspects. You want to find, I think, for example, like time tracking is a very important problem, but there are a lot of solutions on the market already. So you want to try to find a problem, and especially I think this will be applicable for the nonprofits. Is you want to try to find problems that people aren't really looking at right now, that customers are facing, and they're just sort of an unmet need now. They're trying to hack together solutions, or maybe they can maybe they can't even use QuickBooks Online because of the support just isn't there through apps and through native functionality. And of course, simplicity, you always want to make sure that your application is easy to understand. Not just for the hackathon, but if you wanted to actually have users using it, you don't want to have a whole complex onboarding guide, or you want to have something that's a little bit more understandable and easy to use. And that sort of goes into your pitch as well. You want to be able to explain it without too much trouble, or else you'll just be on stage sort of yammering through your 2 minutes. Another great thing to do is, I think this goes along well with getting some sleep, but you want to be excited for your presentation. You want to when you describe the problem that you're facing, you want to obviously make it seem like a pretty big problem, which hopefully, you're working on big issues for small businesses. So make people understand the passion that you feel towards your idea, and make sure that they get as excited about it as you are, because that, judging is a pretty emotional thing, and the judges will naturally gravitate towards ideas that people who know the industry get excited about, people who are talking about the product they get excited about. And so you want to have an excitement that's really contagious and can help people understand the impact of your solution. And then you also want to make sure that you anticipate whatever questions that you might get asked. You know, this can be a really make or break point for people presenting. The judges might hear your presentation, especially if you've rehearsed it really well, you've practiced a lot. They might ask some sort of question that you're not really prepared for, and then it makes your whole 2 days of effort sort of seem like a like a waste. Especially questions like, oh, did you think about this existing solution, or have you are you aware of this sort of legal restriction? Those are a couple of questions that can really knock you off your feet, both in your eyes, but also make other people sort of see your app in a not as impactful light. So it's important to think about what you aren't describing in your application that maybe other people are giving out in their pitches. So even if you're not the very first one to give your pitch, then you want to try to watch the other people's pitches and see what questions they ask or what they talk about, and make sure that you address those concerns just the same way. You also, obviously you're going to be practicing this based on all my earlier advice, and so you want to make sure that you take good note of what people don't quite understand, or what follow-up questions they have, and either work that back into your explanation, or a lot of times it's great to leave some stuff for the questions if there's an area that people are probably going to ask about. If you prepare a really good answer for it, then that can actually be a little bit better than using some of your presentation time during the hackathon to address. So make sure that you think about what the questions you're going to be asked are before you. Yeah, Joe.
And then just another tip for the Q&A with the judges is that if you run out of demo time and there's some amazing thing that you forgot to do during your demo, I always follow the answer the judges' questions and give them one more. It's an old PR trick when you're talking to press, is that you answer their question and then just say, and also, and then kind of get that last piece in if you're not able to cover that in the demo.
Yeah, that's a great tip. To sort of give yourself some more time for your presentation, and also help the judges see everything that you want them to see. Good tip, Joe. This is the final point, because I think it's so important, is making sure that you get practice in. I talked about this earlier, but this is really, I think, the most important thing. If you could do one thing, and since the pitches aren't very long, you want to make sure that if you have an extra 5 minutes beforehand, give your presentation to one of your teammates. If that's the only practice you have, that'll probably still make your pitch 500% better, because things like timing issues, technical difficulties, those can all be fixed relatively easily, just not while you're on stage. And so you don't want to have this one shot that you have just be ruined because you didn't have time to go through it any earlier. So make sure you do practice, because it is super important to the success of your pitch. Yeah. Any questions before we sort of close the pitch topic and just open up the normal Hangout? Madam, do I expect to see you win this year?
Of course.
Yeah. I hope your pitch is good. That's all I hope. Well, cool. We'll get out of this, and then I thought another idea we could do is just have you ever played PowerPoint karaoke?
No.
Anybody heard of that? Essentially, you go onto SlideShare and you pick up a random
I've done that.
presentation, and then you just present it without knowing what it is.
Yeah, I've done Battle Deck, which is basically it's an open mic competition where they give you a deck and it's just like randomized things and you have to do a presentation just off the cuff. It's kind of fun and then also very, very not safe for work.
I think it depends on
Yeah.
what kind
Especially,
of presentation you're doing.
yeah, exactly. Somebody always wants to mess with you and adds like some kind of picture of like a not safe for work picture of a donkey on there, right? And then it's like, well, what do I say to this?
Yeah.
I think I've
When
seen
I've
that
been
on
talking,
Impractical Jokers.
yeah, exactly. When I've been talking about, like, I don't know, database systems, and then all of a sudden there's like a donkey.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to end this in the broadcast. The people who are viewing, welcome to join us on the Hangout. Post the link right on the showcase, probably.
Yep, and we'll be posting this video very soon.
There we go. So yeah, start the broadcast.